All right. Hi. It says it's still setting up, but it also says that we are live. So let's assume that we are now live on Facebook, dear Michelle. And welcome to the final week of Institute birthday celebrations, our month-long celebration.
Exciting.
So exciting. And of course, it's been a really interesting month because, of course, in Melbourne, we are back in stage 3 restrictions, and life has actually been very, very intense with homeschooling, all the things that I thought we'd put behind me. And so my strategy around the birthday has been a bit random. So when you emailed me and said, hey, should we have a conversation? It was like, oh my God, of course. And I'm so grateful that you did, because it's really, you have been a vital part of the Institute's success and growth. And as we were just saying before we came live, growth in a way that is truly putting down the foundations of an empire, not just short-term, rapid, but unsustainable. So let's begin at the beginning. Michelle Whitehead, who are you and what do you do in the world for all those people who haven't worked with you?
I am a lawyer, an Australian lawyer, and I basically my business these days is entirely online female incredible business owners. I'm basically the lawyer for people who don't fit in boxes. You know, I bring in the healers, the spiritualists, the caring people, the ones who really are building a business that is outside that traditional paradigm. And I see my mission as being reinventing the legal protections so that they fit for us, so that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater when we say that, you know, we're turning our back on that sort of corporate structured greed is good, all of that sort of stuff. And we're building businesses that are caring and compassionate, but we also need to have those foundations. And
yeah, and you do that so well. And I mean, I love that I hang out with you and there's mushrooms on your backdrop, and I'm sure plenty of people
who works in fairyland.
Yeah, exactly. That it's part of the transparency of the way you do things. Like your branding is so beautiful and whimsical, but there's also great fierceness in you. And I think that's what resonated so deeply with me when we began working together is, you know, I reflect on the 5 years you have helped me through some truly difficult times in the growth of my institute, and some really obvious ones like, you know, getting trademarking done, but then some less obvious ones. And so often your guidance has come from a place of deep soulful care, but it has never compromised its legal integrity, and vice versa. And I think that's why having you on my team from such an early phase and that's what it's felt like, that you're part of the team, has made such a difference to the sustainable growth of the Institute. I want to sort of just touch on that idea though, that you serve this, what I like to call fringe dwellers. We're all a bit, you know, we're on the fringes of society and we want to do business differently. That's why we've often left the corporate world behind, or we've left other kinds of businesses behind, and you do serve us so well. But one of the things that I know through training my students is that so often we don't even know there's legal requirements to run a business online. There's not a lot of training around that. And I'd love you to talk about a little bit about that and where you fit in with that, because I think you do serve that market so well.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you become a business owner, you leave behind that old maxim that ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because ignorance is not bliss when it comes to your legal foundations. And it becomes a responsibility and part of stepping up as the owner of a business that's going to survive, be a long term, and in many of our cases, we've got the intention of leaving a legacy. And if you're going to build a business that's big enough to not only meet the needs of your clients and be of service to the world and change the world in the here and now, but to last beyond your lifetime, then understanding what your responsibilities are, what your obligations are, forming an ideal of your own understandings of best practice and your commitment to best practice, and in many cases creating that for an industry that has no regulation or has no none of these boundaries. Like, you're not just stepping in and being taught what's required, you're creating it from the ground up.
Yes.
And to do that in a way that's structured and takes note of your consumer guarantees, your contractual obligations, your intellectual property ownership, your commitment to handling conflict with compassion, all of these things is just even more essential than, you know, understanding about promotions and marketing, and understanding about your branding, and understanding what it is that you do and how you serve your clients. It's an integral, and understanding how to handle your business finances. It's just as integral.
I just couldn't agree with you more. And I'm sort of flashing back to, you know, my mission is, you know, to lead the revolution in excellence in the intuitive sciences beyond the new age ghetto, but beyond this unregulated industry. And when I started to, you know, work with you, which was right from the very beginning of the third level, creating an agreement, a legally binding agreement with their students, and you helped craft that. Well, you really did craft that. I just answered the questions that you knew to ask. It was right from the very beginning, that idea that so many people with good intentions do bad, harmful things because they have not taken the time to understand what best practice and ethical practice is in business. And that they're also, that we can create agreements that are, whilst an agreement is often, you know, preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. You know, like your agreements do that. And that's what's been so, I think, important in the success of the third level and our other programs, is that it's how do you sit with the discomfort of sometimes your students or your clients will disagree with you, but to know that you've actually prepared the ground. And I think I'm just reflecting as you were speaking on how vital that has been to the integrity and the ethical best practice that the Institute has been able to offer to this unregulated industry. And I just want to take a moment to just reflect on how deeply integrated you are into that for me, and that we are able to lead that revolution because of those foundations. And you touched on that as well. I want you to talk to that. It's very sexy to think that getting a branding suite or a website or having a business coach is going to be the answer to how you set your business up for integrity. But actually, it is working on these foundations that are unseen potentially by most of the world that is going to make the difference. And why do you think we don't get that? What is it that's missing, or how can we shift our thinking around that?
I think in a lot of ways, I think we've fallen into the misunderstanding or the misapprehension that legals are something that we must have or should do. And that as a result, they tend to slide down the important but not urgent list.
Yes.
Like, everybody knows they need to have them, but because they don't understand how they serve you, because you don't see and because in many cases they're quite a significant investment. Yeah. But you don't see the payoff until you're in the situation of crisis.
Yeah.
And it's only, you know, it's clients who come to me too late, who are in the middle of that crisis situation, and it's like, untangling the mess that has resulted. Whereas if they had taken the time to, at the start, to put the thought into processing that client relationship, and I describe client contracts as a sacred container. And traditional legals, your contracts are a barbed wire fence, right? They're out there like keeping people separate, and they're there to protect you from being overrun and to protect your backside in the case of everything having collapsed.
Yeah.
Whereas my mission is to bring contracts and agreements and all of that stuff back into the here and now, and create a sacred container that does such a good job of holding the space for the relationship that you want to have with your ideal clients, and educating those ideal clients in how you work and where your boundaries are and what they can expect from you, that those kind of conflicts that traditional legals protect against never occur.
Yeah.
Because everybody is on the same page and you all understand how it's all working, and your contracts and your legal foundations are all holding the space for your business to hold space for the clients.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I also think it's really very true and potentially misunderstood that even in working with you, because you do go on a process, it is a guided journey to prepare your contracts, or, you know, even whatever it is, you know, we've done
your website terms and conditions, your privacy policy, your intellectual property protection. It's all
of that
connected, all the pieces.
It's like, it is a creative process. It's an archetypal journey. And I love that you use archetypes in your branding, and you use these archetypal images from fairy tales so powerfully, because it is about, for me, working with you is like excavating the deepest parts of what do I stand for?
Yes.
You know, who am I in my sacred service in the world? And the women you work with, by the description you gave, we don't have a separation between who we are and how we serve. So it literally is like, here's my soul, I'm putting it out there in the world. And that reminds me of another point I want to bring up around this idea of boundaries and discernment, because it's very hard for us often to have good boundaries and good discernment. And we can be bleeding hearts, or we can actually self-sabotage. But every time I've worked with you, it's been like a creative up-leveling. It isn't just coming back or, you know, we've done most things in the right order, some things not, but most things we've got in the right order. But it is always a really profound up-leveling of who and what I stand for. It isn't just a matter of, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It's inspiring. It's like it prods me to have these difficult conversations in advance of needing to have the difficult conversations. And then you're like able to go, yes, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. What would I do if someone came at me like this, or someone, you know, felt I'd let them down, or this person wanted to use my business name, or, you know, how am I going to behave in those challenging situations?
It's setting intentions.
It is.
With integrity.
Yes. Yes. And I really, really love that this conversation is reminding me of how I felt and have felt, because sometimes it's hard. And I think that's part of why people also avoid this, because these are the hard things. It's the same.
Oh, yes.
The other
I often say that doing your legals brings up more resistance than the deepest shadow work. Honestly, because you're going really, really deep. And that's, you know, that's encouraged me to step into more mentoring around risk management and things, because it's the deep resistant shadow work that you're actually bringing up, because you're facing the fact that things can go wrong.
Yes.
You're facing the fact that your responsibilities actually have deep, deep roots.
Yeah. And that word responsibility is huge, because I think, you know, good intentions are one thing, but actually taking the action that means that your work in the world, your service in the world will actually do more good than more harm, takes a deep sense of personal responsibility. That word just keeps coming up for me all the time right now, because it's not
a dirty word.
It's not a dirty word. It's a great word.
People get scared of responsibility. They feel it as a burden.
Yeah.
And, you know, they feel the weight of it.
No.
But embracing your responsibility is what steps you forward into being a sovereign. Like a sovereign is someone who has embraced their responsibility for taking power, exercising power over more than just themselves.
Yeah.
And it's your choice. The only thing you have control over is the choices that you make.
Yeah.
And so whether you make those choices in a moment where all of your emotions are triggered and you're in a conflict situation and it all feels like it's collapsing around you, or whether you make the choice to consider what you stand for, what your responsibility is, how you want your ideal relationships to unfold, how you want your business to grow in a moment of calm, and then set those boundaries up so that when the conflict does start to happen, when things do the cracks start to appear, you've got your golden rules. You've got your decisions, your choices about how you're going to respond, and your processes all set up so that you're not collapsing into the chaos. You've got that space being held for you to process the emotions, to calm yourself down, and then to follow the decisions that you've made around, you know, to follow the path that you've set out for yourself around where you're going to go with this.
There's just so much in what you're sharing that is just so nourishing to me. And I think it is really, Oh, it's just so invaluable for every woman who is in business, but through this idea that her work is her service. And I know that we can all feel that as entrepreneurs, but there is a special kind of weddedness to your work when you are coming at it from a place of sacred service. And I think you've touched on so many things I want to pick up on, but this idea of I just love I have a lawyer that talks about shadow work. I just think how lucky am I that, I don't have to say, but it's like, we're going on an intentional descent to the underworld. That's, the work that I do in the world. And that's, it's like, yes, let's go there before we have to be forced to go there.
My risk management mentoring is all around opening up the caves that are underneath our castle and bringing our dragons out into the light so we can meet them and recognize how much love they have for us. And how deeply they're trying to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And, let go the ones that are limiting beliefs and take action, follow the promptings of the ones that are real world dangers.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I love talking in archetypes and I love doing it too. But it is
metaphor's so powerful.
It is.
Metaphor cuts through all of that emotion and resistance and brain thinking that's, says, oh, this is too scary to deal with.
Yeah.
And it actually brings it into the light where we can really focus and understand complex concepts that we have massive resistance around.
Yeah.
And it tricks our brain into just sort of putting that aside and playing with the concept, and then we can start taking action on it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, one of those things is around this idea of boundaries and discernment, because, I can think of at least 2 occasions where I've come to you with a situation that probably had legal precedent, where we could have gone a particular route because there was a legal precedent there, and it would have probably brought a lot of trauma and suffering to everyone involved, but I would have been right. I would have won the point. But because we had already established through the contracts that you've helped me create for the Institute that there was a way that I want to behave in the world, even when it's hard, it meant that I wasn't having to start from scratch thinking, what do I do if someone pushes up against my boundaries and doesn't respect what I think is right? Because this is the other truth about human nature, is what we think is right may have nothing to do with what the other person thinks is right. But so often what we've already put in place has helped you've been able to look to that and say, remember how we said this here? Shall we continue to navigate from this ethos, from this ethical standpoint, because that's what you say you stand for? And even if I might be in my ego, like, how dare they, or whatever this situation is, it's a very profound form of soul work. It is deeply, deeply spiritual work, because it's where the rubber hits the road. It's like, this is where shit gets real. Like, now we practice. When everyone loves you, it's easy to be spiritual, right?
When you're triggered and everything's going to crap, then you need to tune back into who am I really?
Yeah.
And what I really want.
It's the bravest work, because we are so good at spiritual bypassing in the spiritual world, where we will avoid the hard things. And the bravest work is to go into the caves and sit with the dragons, and exactly as you say, to work out which ones are shadow dragons who will evaporate as soon as you put your attention on them, and which ones actually need you to help them,
Yep, they're sitting down there, and they're, when you've just got the smoke drifting out from the caves, it's super scary. That's monster under the bed stuff.
Yeah.
Only it's the monster under your business.
Yeah.
And your business doesn't feel safe, so you're not out there selling it and inviting people into your castle, because this is dangerous. This castle is scary. If I invite people in and the monster erupts, it's going to come crashing down, and it's not just going to wreck me, it's going to wreck my family. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose all my clients. I'm going to hurt my clients, and my clients are going to lose their house. It's all going to come crashing down. It's too scary. I can't sell my first product because it's all too scary. And it's all just those little wisps of smoke peeping out of the caves. But when you go into the caves and you actually meet the dragons and you say, wow, look at you, little dragon. You're just a problem I've created for myself. Off you go, fly away. Or, okay, dragon, you are a real issue. Like, I can tell that, you're big, you're toothy, you're really scary. But look at you. You're just there trying to warn me that there's a danger down the track.
Yeah.
And it's a danger that I can take action on. I can put boundaries around. I can put things into practice that will protect me.
Yeah.
And so, little dragon, I'm going to give you a home, and I'm going to get you out of the cave, and I'm going to put you, what kind of home do you want? Like, do you need a nest in the turret, or do you need a bed of your own? I'm going to give you a home in my castle so that you can continue protecting me and keeping me safe and reminding me that I need to do this action because this action has consequences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or ignoring this dragon has consequences.
Yeah.
And when you stop ignoring and suppressing those dragons and just saying, shh, dragon, go down, go away, stay in the cave, go back there, dragon, then you've just got all that unsafe smoke pouring out. But when your dragons are all comfy and relaxing around the castle and you know where they are and what their job is, then suddenly your business just feels so much stronger and so much safer. And you can't wait to invite everybody in and let them experience how wonderful this thing is that you're building. Yeah. Because it's for everybody's benefit, and they all, you know, it's all protected as much as it can be.
So we were talking just before we went on the call about the flip
Sorry,
side.
I rave about dragons.
No, I love it. I love that the metaphor works so well. But the idea that why wouldn't we go down into the caves and check out the dragons? And you talked about this just before we came on live. You know, there's a strong archetype that we can have as women in business, particularly spiritual women, which is kind of in a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't want to give too much away. I'd love you to talk about what you've observed, because I observe it all the time in the way, why would we ignore our legals and our dragons in the caves?
Well, in part, it's partially down to ignorance and not educating ourselves. But in part, it's all of that. All right, there's so many aspects of this. There's the element of feeling that we don't have a choice, that we are in service, therefore we must be the sacrifice. Yeah. You know, that we have to keep giving and giving of ourselves, saying yes, 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 without tuning in with integrity and making those choices from a position of what is right for me, where do my boundaries need to be. And the other aspect of it is that, you know, there's practitioners out there, and I think this might be the metaphor that you liked, that there's practitioners out there who've been flying naked for 30 years that I meet. And I've got clients who aren't prepared to invite their first client in the door because without having the full suit of armor around them. And it's that whole continuum. And there's all that judgment around it that, oh, I can't have legals, like I've got nothing, therefore, and I've never needed them, but therefore I'm wrong. Or I don't feel safe, therefore my business is wrong. And there's nothing wrong with where you are on that continuum. It's recognizing that and self-assessing how vulnerable you feel. Yeah. And noticing that where you are feeling vulnerable, that vulnerability and that lack of safety is stopping you from selling your business to its full potential or growing your business to its full potential. Yes, and that, you know, that idea of the saboteur that you were talking about. Oh, yes. That we sabotage ourselves by not putting these foundations in, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, it all went wrong because, you know, we set ourselves up to fail. Exactly. So, you know, the less safe you are, the less safe you feel, the more you sabotage, the more, because you're playing small. Yeah. It's safer for you to stay small. Yeah. So by not putting your legals in place, by not taking the actions on your dragons, by not doing any of this stuff, you're actually, and that's where the resistance comes from too, because it's safer to stay small. And the less, it's only when you actually take those steps outside your comfort zone and start meeting the dragons, start working out what you need, start putting the foundations in place so that you can reach that place of safety where you really feel the sovereign. Yeah. That the saboteur never goes away. No, there's always another dragon. There's always another shadow. There's always another, you know, you come round and round and round on the spiral. But that's the beauty of legals that you have poured your heart and soul into, and you haven't tacked them on to the edge of your business like some alien appendage that feels really icky and what's it doing there, and it's not aligned and it's not got nothing to do with me. Which is what happens when we create our legals because we should have them or must have them, and we patchwork them together from other people's, or we, you know, buy the thing that doesn't fit us, or we talk to the lawyer who's not aligned and they're sitting in a suit in a big city office and you've got no feeling of connection with them. Yeah. But when you've created your legals from your heart and you've poured, they come from the heart of your business and they're 100% aligned with that whole integrity and your vision for where you're going, you come back, you take ownership of them.
Yeah.
And it's that ownership that allows you to keep tweaking and evolving them so they grow as your business grows.
Exactly.
It keeps you connected and committed to them as the embodiment of your ideal client relationships.
Yeah.
So that as your business circles around and you come back to those same issues over and over again, you're growing each time.
Yeah.
And that's what allows you to really expand into that empire.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess what no one told me at the beginning of business was the more successful you are, the more complex business becomes, and that it is okay if you are well supported and you have that. And that's, I'm going to speak with Laura Elkaslassi on Friday, who's also been integral to the growth of the Institute. And money, it's all about the money. Yeah. And, having these two scary things, money and legals, like probably the two shadow bits of anything, but, just absolutely having that fearlessness that the more success you have, the more you grow, the harder the conversations are going to get. And the bigger you're going to have to sovereign. And that's actually okay if you're well prepared and these foundations are good, because then, exactly as you're saying, as you spiral around, you are going to be able to meet these challenges, these bigger and heftier challenges, with more and more grace, because the foundation is growing with you. If you have to bring in your legals and good money management like 5 years into business, fuck me, that's when it's going to get really hard, because then you're trying to do all this stuff retrospectively. But if you bring it in from the very beginning and it's growing with you, and Michelle sends you an email and says, hey, it's probably time to review your legals, it's been this, you go, yes, we're just reviewing.
Loving nagging.
Yeah, we're not trying to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And now here's this really challenging thing, this dragon coming at me over here, and I'm not sitting here afraid of that dragon because I don't know how to manage dragons. I know how to manage dragons. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but I'm willing to do that now. And so then, the sabotage program is neutralized. And
you've approached the whole issue, instead of being from that place of fear and avoidance of liability and protecting your ass that the traditional legal type mentality has, you've embraced it from that position of love and curiosity. So I love my business. I love my clients.
Yeah.
I wonder how I can make this even better for them.
Yeah.
And even better for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I just think it's just so clarifying in so many ways, this idea of, what do you stand for? And it needs to be across every part of your business. It can't be in one thing only. And if your business is holistic in that way, genuinely, truly holistic, if everything is built in that same foundation of what you stand for, then you're truly going to succeed. I just really feel so invigorated by this conversation, because I think it's as you say, it's shifting the mindset from, oh, I have to do this if I want to have a business, to, oh my God, this might actually be the thing that allows me to become even more potent as a business person and a leader in my field.
Confidence, and you increases your confidence, increases your connection, increases your understanding of what it means to you to be in business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really,
going from whole mindset to genuine, establishing an actual business.
Yeah. And I'm real. I'm doing this. This is a real thing. This has, it has potential, and it has the ability to fulfill that potential.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey, because, one of the things, of course, is that we've had, experienced growth in the same phase. That's the last 5 years. We've both expanded a lot. And I'd love to hear, what is it that you've learned from, your service in the world? How has it kind of surprised you or changed you beyond what you thought you would be 5 years ago?
Wow. Okay. 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was a completely burnt out lawyer who, I was pregnant. Let's go a little tiny bit back than that. So maybe 6-7 years. I'd been working in a small country legal firm. They did mainly family and criminal law, and I did everything else, all the stuff nobody else wanted to do, which was all the contracts, business law, all of that stuff. And at the same time, I was homeschooling 2 little kids, 2 toddlers, young kids, and I wanted to spend as much time at home as possible. I was also had health issues. So basically I was making a lot of sacrifices to be of service while still meeting my family's needs.
Yeah.
And so I was working for embarrassingly peanuts, and having my work charged for at lawyer rates, and basically selling my soul. And I got to the point where I couldn't do it any longer. I was pregnant with my daughter, and I decided I was going to go back to uni and do my master's, and I was going to major in alternative dispute resolution, qualify as a mediator, and give up on law. And so, you know, I did my master's over 2 years. My baby came with me in the womb and out. I was breastfeeding in seminars. I was doing all of this stuff, and I was realizing, stepping into my own potentiality. And then I got to the point where I'd done all of that, and I'd changed and grown in so many ways, and yet I was still trapped in this burnt out situation where I was going, you know, this adversarial legal system where even when my clients won their court cases, they were losing in stress and money and emotion and family sacrifice. And, you know, there was no winners. Yeah. And here I was, I've just qualified as a mediator. I'm all about the win-win. Right? I'm always about the connection, not the separation. And so I thought, right, I'm going to quit being a lawyer, and I'm just going to be a mediator. I'm going to be a channel of peace for the world. I'm going to bring everybody back together. And I mean, that's huge for me. The whole channel of peace matter is my mission.
Yeah.
And so I came, and I thought, I haven't got the first idea about how to market a mediation business. I know nothing about running my own business. So I fell into this online entrepreneurial heart-centered world, and I started noticing, and I started doing personal development work on myself.
Yeah.
And the more I was doing this personal development work and focusing on who I was, once I took off the mask of lawyer and the mask of you know, homeschooling mum and the mask of practicing Catholic and all of these masks, and realized that I didn't want to be in 50 million pigeonholes anymore. I wanted to be one authentic person who could be all of me and bring all of me into my business. And at the same time, I was meeting all these amazing women who, like yourself, who were doing the same thing, but you didn't have your boundaries and you didn't know what you needed. And I'm like, okay, I forgive myself. I forgive myself for becoming a lawyer and for being the sellout that I thought I was.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, how can I deconstruct all of this stuff? Contracts are about caring. And so I thought, right, contracts that care. Yeah. And I'm a DIYer, and I'm here doing it all myself. So I thought, right, how can I DIY? I don't want to create templates that are boxes for people to stick themselves into. I want to create ways for people to DIY their legals that really come from the heart and use the love language that their clients deserve and expect from them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing. And then just one step after the other, and one client at a time, and one person who trusted me at a time, I built it up to be what it is now, where I get to be the lawyer who works in fairyland and talk about castles and dragons and, you know, take people, you know, my Serenity Connective membership, which I launched last year, which is all about, we don't accept being less than we are. Yeah. Who are we when we take the deepest, you know, who are we when we look at apologies? Where are we saying sorry? We spent a whole month on sorry, not sorry. You know, what does it mean to apologize with integrity? Yeah. What does it mean to say yes and no from our deepest authenticity? And where are we not doing that? And where can we pull that away? And, you know, this month we've just been doing dragons, and what are we scared of? Where are we holding fear in our businesses?
Yeah.
You know, all of these things. And I get to spend time just having these conversations with people, which is amazing. Yeah. At the same time as drafting, you know, the licensing agreements that let them take their intellectual property and their body of work that they've poured their heart and soul into and spread it across the globe. Yeah. And make it so much bigger than they are. Yeah. You know, I get to take the relationships that they desperately want to have with their clients, and set up the boundaries that make it happen, so that we're not living lives of sacrifice and destroying our dreams in the name of overgiving and rescuing and being there for people. We're actually setting the boundaries that hold the space for us so that we can bring our best, most beautiful service out there in a way that's supported, and supported from our deepest sense of who we are and what we are here to do, rather than being squished into a box because that's what we think should happen. Okay. Yes.
Oh, I love that, because I mean, as you're listening, I'm like, that sounds like the curriculum for the third level, because like it's the same kind of thing. It's like, are you willing to go to the scariest place and to sit there in the discomfort and do the deep work? And you know, when, as I said before, if we're not doing that everywhere, we're doing it nowhere. Like you can't say, I'm a great spiritual teacher over here, and then, oh shit, there's something over here that's too scary to look at.
Not going to look at that.
You're not actually in congruence. You're not actually showing up in integrity. And I think, you know, one of the things that's been so vital to me, having you in my corner, is that when the things have got hard, to say, am I worthy? Is my work worthy of me doing this really hard thing, which mostly has never had to be that hard at all. You know, some awkward emails and a bit, you know, we've managed to avoid full-blown discomfort, and because of the way you've helped me navigate things. But every time I approach you with a challenge, it really comes down to that question of, do you have the self-worth to love what you've created so much that you won't run away from the hard thing, that you will do the hard thing, which means right now, Ricky, you have to show up and you have to stand up for what you've created.
Or even that you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Exactly.
Or a situation from an aspect that's not yours. Or
all the hard things, you know, this might be the time where you walk away rather than, you know, you rise up. But so often I think we're afraid of going into bat for what we've created, or to set it up in a way that it is, you know, even defensible, and not, it's that offense rather than defense, like to actually set it up in a way that means that you would never have to go into battle, because you've created this idea of boundaries is so much about a question of self-worth. And I think that's what you're sharing, and what I'm hearing in your reflection is, as you met your own self-worth, you've created a model for women to meet their self-worth through doing their service in a really integral or way that has great integrity. And I love hearing that, you know, you couldn't have offered that if you weren't doing the work yourself.
No. It's quite often the case that, you know, I'm the biggest, I'm as authentic and vulnerable as anyone in the Serenity Connective, because I've got as much dragons as anybody. You know, I posted the other day about an experience I had with a client where I completely fucked up, absolutely and totally. Yeah. And, you know, so, but I still had to handle it, and it still had to happen. Yeah. And I still had to work out, okay, well, how am I going to make this better? Yeah. Without rolling over and giving up on everything because I made a mistake. Yeah. Yeah. That's humility, right? That's how I would describe, oh, you've just frozen on me. Hopefully that's a temporary glitch. There you are. Are you back? Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I was just saying, you know, what you're describing to me is what I would call humility. Oh, a little bit frozen. Hopefully it's all going to sort itself out, because this conversation is so good. Too powerful.
Yeah,
we break the internet.
Yeah. Hopefully that's all resolved, though.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So having the humility to correct the error and not go into self-loathing and shame and guilt, but actually to say, yes, I can do better, and how can I repair this? Yeah.
And integrity means observing where your ego is writing stories too. Yeah. And that's a huge part of legal foundations, legal decision making choices. It's the part that doesn't get talked about. Yeah. But yeah, it really does come down to, where am I telling myself stories? What's the mental story that's going on in this situation, and does it actually align with who I am at my deepest levels, my integrity of choice? Yeah. Is this who I want to be?
Yeah, and that is such a powerful note, because you've helped me work out who I want to be in my service in the world. And I think, I didn't come into the conversation with you. I can't even remember what the first conversation we had was, but I didn't come into that with any expectation of that at all. And to have received so much from this relationship, and to feel so confident about becoming a truly global training organization because of your work it's an unspeakable blessing. Thank you for helping me,
it's
being unafraid to meet my power because of you.
And it's an incredible joy to be involved in that, seeing someone's castle in the air, and it's so beautiful. And that just watching and being part of it as it's grounded onto solid foundations. And then that grounding gives it the confidence, and it grows and it grows and it expands into an empire. And it's just, love it.
Exactly.
Every time it happens, it's like watching magic. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And it is, I love that there's a part of you that I know is holding the future vision of the Institute, because probably like me, when you serve someone, you're invested in them. And as I say, those emails that I get saying, this is where we could go next. It's like it's planting seeds in my consciousness of what else is possible. Because once again, for most of us, what you do as a lawyer is it's like another language. It's like we don't have any training in it. Nothing in the world has prepared us for it. We usually don't, no one teaches that unless we study it. We're lucky enough to study it or have people who understand it or whatever. And you're decoding something that it's everywhere in the world. Like you can't go, I'm just going to not have a business based with any legal stuff. I'm just going to avoid that. You can't. Like it's everywhere. You would actually be breaking the law to not have legals in your business. But for you to do it and to bring it into the world with such grace is such a blessing. And I'm not surprised that the internet went a bit crazy when you showed up with all your lawyer shame, and we're like, oh, we need you. Because it's magic to me, and it's so foreign to us. That's what I was trying to say. It's like so far outside of our scope, and for you, it's like, yes, obviously, and also let's see how we can do better. So I think that was just a long-winded compliment, but there was a point.
At the same time, right back at you, because the Institute has been absolutely essential to me discovering this journey. What if there is no problem? I say that to myself 15 million times a day. It's like Ricky James sitting, a little thing on a little voice in my shadow. It says, what if there's no problem? Oh. And that filters through into my conversations with clients.
Yeah.
That's become part of the bedrock of me, not just my business, but of me in my integrity and my sovereignty. Spiritually fierce, the ability to stand up and say, here I am, and this is what I believe in, and this is where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
One of the most amazing conversations I ever had about being spiritually fierce and how my vision for my business, I was standing, when we sold our house 3 years ago, my husband sent me on a pilgrimage to pay me back for all of the conveyancing work I'd done, because it was a conveyancing nightmare. So he said, look, take some money, go wherever you want in the world, make it a spiritual pilgrimage. And I went to Jordan and Israel on a guided pilgrimage with a Catholic tour group, because I'm a practicing Catholic. And I was standing in the water of the Sea of Galilee, talking to a bunch of New Zealand farmers and interesting people from all over the world who were on this Catholic pilgrimage with me, and telling them what it meant to me to be spiritually fierce in this online entrepreneurial world. And at sunset, and it's just like, this is just like channeling the divine in such an incredible way. Yeah. And that's the gift that being connected with the Institute has given to me, to actually step forth behind all of the masks and admit I am spiritually fierce and I am here to serve. And
Yes,
Yeah.
you are. Yeah. Well, I would love to have been there in that moment, just hovering above that scene.
I'm sure you were.
Oh, my darling. It's a definite mutual appreciation society, but I think that's, the nature of this work, and probably what we've both seen over the last 5 years is that energy does attract itself to it. And, if you are a woman who's establishing her business, don't be afraid. If you come at it with integrity, you will magnetize those who can serve you to keep going, even if it looks like the world is full of charlatans and people trying to sell you the quick fix or the magic bullet or tell you they don't need that. But if you sit still enough in that space of who am I and how do I want to show up in the world, that will be rewarded, not because God's keeping a scoreboard, but because like attracts like. And you will resonate with those who are doing the work in the world at that same frequency. Yes. And I think that's really so vital, is that ultimately don't believe that you have to dumb down and work with a lawyer who makes you feel like shit, or a business coach who makes you feel bad about who you are. Or
choose your gurus carefully.
Yeah, choose. Yeah.
Really carefully.
Really carefully.
And read their contracts. If they don't have a nice contract, walk away.
If no contract, walk away. Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. The horror stories, Michelle, that we could tell. The horror stories. I love that we've managed to have this whole conversation though without sharing those horror stories, because we could. I mean, absolutely, even just in our own, work together. But it isn't what matters. What matters is that ultimately we're both standing where we're standing in the work that we do in the world, because we've known how to navigate those situations, because we've put those foundations in place, and we have shown up with that integrity, even when it was hard and unpopular.
Yeah. And we've trusted our intuition. If there was one message I would put out there that everybody needs to know, it's that every single time I've had a problem, a client's had a problem, it's all come back to, I didn't listen to my gut.
Yeah.
I knew this wasn't right, and I did it I made the choice anyway.
Yeah. Likewise, I think going forward, to know, get the best information, be really well informed. But as so much of the work we've done together is like, what's the intuitive choice here? What course of action do we take? And that knowing, that intuitive intelligence, which is a trained intuition, where we've met the dragons under the castle and we've cleared out that subconscious basement, to use my language. A trained intuition will be your most valuable tool in business, because then you're challenged, the fork in the road challenge. Okay, which way do I go? You can make a decision that's coming from a higher level of consciousness, and not trying to just go, okay, well, that person was allowed to sue that person for that thing, so I guess I'll do it too. Like, that's a man-made world, and we're not interested in that. Let's work with our higher consciousness. And I think ultimately, let's wrap it all up with a beautiful bow. That's what you do, and that's what you offer.
And the other thing is that when you're holding it all in your head, when you're holding all the anxiety around, what if my clients ask for a refund? What if there's an issue? What if I don't know what to do, or I'm not delivering as I promised? What if, when you're holding all of these what ifs, it's obstacles, it's blockages. You're putting up the barriers between yourself and the divine, and you can't access that intuition clearly. So when you've taken all those what ifs and you've grounded them and answered them all in your legals, you're clearing away those blockages. You're clearing that channel. You're making yourself more of a conduit for your intuition to come through.
I 100% agree. And it's always felt that way when I've got things in place, thanks to you, that I can breathe deeper and I can expand my vision, and I can go, okay, what next? Because I'm not holding all this, oh, fuck, it's really scary and hard. So I absolutely 100% agree. I think you help me make space in terms of what God wants, which is the language I use. Okay, what next, God? And if I'm so worried about all those things, then there's no space for God to talk to me. So I got no vision. I'm just in survival mode, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very unhealthy way to work in the world. So I want to ask you then, my darling, I know you said intuition, that's the thing that you would want every woman to know who's listening, but what's the final thing you want to share with us today about anything really? It doesn't have to be directly related, but just What do we need to know from Michelle Whitehead?
To be aligned with your values and your vision, and to really take the time to work out what that is, because everything else stems from that. If you're not aligned with your value, if you don't understand who you are at the deepest level, if you haven't investigated what your values are and what you hold deeply true and what your vision is, where you are going, then nothing else is going to work. Because you'll put boundaries in place and then you'll trample them. You'll say, I'm going to do this, and then you'll do the opposite. And you'll set up relationships with your clients and they'll go wrong because you will be acting out of alignment. So bringing everything constantly back to that alignment with your integrity. Once you're aligned with your integrity, you can start building those boundaries. You can start putting all of the foundations in place. And that's how you step up into sovereignty, how you take ownership for those values and visions, and actually make them, to become the leader that you intend to be, and to start building the legacy that you need to leave.
Gemma, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I love that, because I think you've demystified for so many of us why your work and legal, doing the legals in your business matters. And it's so much more than you could possibly imagine when you work with someone like you. And I'm going to share the link.
You wouldn't think all of that was tied up in a website terms and conditions that no one's ever going to read, but actually on an energetic level, it's functioning amazingly.
Exactly. I'm going to share my affiliate link, because of course I'm an affiliate for you, because I love everything that you stand for, and I'm really excited to be able to share that in the link here. And really there's so many ways to work with you, right from that DIY, do it yourself, but with your support, right through to, what I'm like, please just sell here you go. And just everything in between. And you really do make it so accessible to work with you. And there's no excuse. I think it's that thing of, if you're not looking at this in your business yet, just pause everything, get this stuff sorted, and then go back into it, because there's never an easy or convenient time, but if you don't do it, you'll find that there's a lot of inconvenient times in your business. So
and it's also, it doesn't need to be a scary, overwhelming burden.
No,
it doesn't need to be, I've got to do this all at once, or there's going to be a nuclear bomb drop on my business. It's like, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's identify the first piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
Let's identify what's in your budget right now, what you can do, what you need. And let's just put that first block in the foundation stones.
I love that.
And then let's work from there.
Exactly.
Get used to having that block in place. And then what's the next block?
And now if our audience aren't aware, this is deep soul work. It's like getting, spiritual therapy or spiritual direction included in all of it. Like, of course you want to do this, but I absolutely agree. Just start somewhere. And just don't wait until some perfect conditions arise. Start somewhere, and that might just be by visiting your website and just having a look at what needs to happen, how people can work with you, and making a plan to do that, and maybe making a time to have a chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Always happy to chat with people. It's my favorite thing to do.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And if there are any questions, chuck them in the comments, and I'm sure Michelle or I can respond to them, or we'll direct you to the website and provide whatever information we can. Thank you to everyone. And thank you so much for bringing it to my attention that this would be an amazing opportunity. And as I say, it's been a really interesting, not expected kind of month, but this has been such a jewel in the crown of my birthday celebration. So I'm feeling very nourished.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's just been amazing. I always love it. Any excuse to chat with you, but to chat about all the deep stuff that we normally have to put aside because we're focusing on something practical. It's just amazing.
It is.
To actually unpack the theory behind what it is that we're doing, and to look at the underpinnings of why we're doing it is a real privilege and a blessing.
Coming, Michelle, you got to put all of this in a book, my darling. We need to have a way to help. I really do.
Well, considering that I stepped into law school after doing my honours in English because all of the adults in my life told me I couldn't make a living as a writer, when all I'd ever wanted to do was write, there are definitely books somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think we've got them. You've
It's
probably
just that's a dragon I'm still dealing with, that no
so
one
many
will ever read them.
articles and done so many lives. Just, you know, compile it all. Get someone to compile it for you. That's my 2 cents. All right, everybody.
Good
So
idea.
much love to you all, and we'll see you very soon.